There's a great celebration of DC in this movie. There's a great celebration of all the wonderful DC characters that we've gotten. But all of it, and I think this is the word that all three of us have used about this film, and I think it's a term we're going to keep using about this movie. It all feels too late.
Hello and welcome to the movie podcast review of The Flash. My name is Daniel. I am one of your hosts today, and joining alongside me today in the Speed Force, it's Anthony.
Zoom, zoom, zoom. It's me, Mr. Flash.
Joining us as well in the Speed Force, fresh from stopping the world from ending or maybe causing a new, pandemic. Who knows? It's Shahbaz. Hey, Shahbaz.
Pandemic, yeah. Hey, everybody. Hello. Welcome to the Speed Force. Try to catch up.
I don't like the way you're flying it all there, but I will say I do really like the lighting setup you have right now. You do have very Flash-themed lights. Don't think we didn't notice, because we did.
I tried to flash you guys. I don't know if you guys noticed. Wait,
is that different? That's
is
a
that
little
the right
different
term
than what I was thinking about.
Sorry,
I thank you for addressing that.
My bad.
This is our spoiler-free review for The Flash. We know I typically say, this film has been a long time coming, and I think The Flash really takes the cake for when we say this film has been a long time coming, because this is a movie that was announced all the way back in October of 2014. And since then, we've had Ezra Miller, who's been cast. We've had a lot that's gone on with Ezra Miller in the last couple years, and I want to address it right at the top of the show. The movie podcast does not condone or agree with any of the actions that Ezra Miller has been accused of. We want to get it right out of the gates, saying that we are reviewing The Flash based on the movie that we saw and not the person that Ezra Miller is. So just keep that in mind when we are giving our spoiler-free thoughts of The Flash. Now, I just want to ask both of you, is there anything, I've said our part on behalf of the show, but is there anything that you, both of you guys, want to add to that before we dive into our, the normal housekeeping and the rest of the show?
Yeah, I think from my end here, really not going to try to talk too much about Ezra Miller. I don't think they need any more spotlight to their heinous crimes. But this is a movie that so many people are involved in. It literally takes a village to make movies like this.
Mm-hmm.
And, Andy Muschietti and the entire crew, they put their hard work into this. It's not their fault. And we really want to acknowledge the work that they put in.
Exactly. And that's what we will be reviewing today, because this is the movie podcast. You can catch brand new episodes all throughout the week. We have new interviews and new reviews constantly coming out, so you don't want to miss any of that. Make sure you're subscribed to us on YouTube and all the podcast feeds, on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts. There's so many ways to interact with our show. We want you there. Leave us 5 stars. Leave a comment. There's so many ways to talk to us. Let us know what you think of the show. And if you can't get more of our faces, because, look at our faces, truly the faces of podcasters, make sure you're following us on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and Letterboxd. That is where we announce all of our future episodes. We have clips from our show, clips of all the incredible special guests that we have joining us. So make sure you follow us at the movie podcast. You don't want to miss it. And if you are watching this on YouTube, or if you're, you're looking for some more friends to talk about movies with, join our Discord. We have in our show notes, we have all of the links you need to know. We're going to be talking about this film. We will have a spoiler room open next week once The Flash releases into theaters on June 16th. Like I said, a long time coming. We've been really waiting for this film, and it feels very surreal to say that we've actually watched it. Of course, Shahbaz has already mentioned that this film is directed by Andy Muschietti. It has had a long line of directors. Also, people that we've spoken to previously on the movie podcast, which is really funny, the coincidence of how that happens. And it stars a massive cast. Of course, we have Ezra Miller, we have Michael Keaton, we have Kiersey Clemons, we have Gadot, we have Michael Keaton. Like I said, we have Ben Affleck, we have Sasha Calle. We have a huge cast of characters, new and old, from the DC universe returning in this film. And we're just going to go right into it. And I just want to remind you, of course, we're staying spoiler free. And I want to thank Warner Brothers, of course, for inviting us to watch this film for review. Shahbaz, I would love for you to start us off. Take us through your journey through the Speed Force in The Flash.
The Flash is fun. It's cool. It has joy. It has entertainment. it succeeds on all the points that you kind of want to go into for a summer comic book movie. It doesn't mean that it excels in all those points. Sometimes it just kind of hits those points and then, like the speedster himself, goes right past it and moves on to something else. There's a lot in this movie. There's a lot of convoluted stuff in this movie. There's a lot of stuff just thrown into this movie. And if you're not familiar with the DCEU, I don't know if it really matters, because it plays an important part. All the characters, all the stuff that's happened, but at the same time, the movie, it doesn't like to stay in one place. And I get it; it's the Flash movie, so that's probably why it's jumping around so much.
Right.
But it almost doesn't matter half the time, because you kind of know where the DCEU is going, where the DCU is going to go. And this movie, I feel like it doesn't fully address a lot of the world building and the concerns. There's great performance by pretty much, I'd say, everybody in this cast. Like, there wasn't anybody that I was like, oh, I don't like how they're acting or what their performance is kind of bringing to this movie. There's a lot of fun times. Like, there's a lot of great jokes. There's some spotty CG, but overall, this movie is big. It's grand. It has a lot of stuff going on in it, for better or for worse. Let's talk about Michael Keaton, because Michael Keaton, of course, is reprising this role from 1991 was the last time we saw.
92.
92, sorry. 92
yeah.
was the last time we got to see Michael Keaton don the black cape and the cowl and everything. And he's fantastic. He's such a great Bruce Wayne. He's such a great Batman, and the moments that we have him in this movie are phenomenal. Then we have Ben Affleck as Batman as well, and you know what? It's time to see him go. It's time to sunset that character, and it's nice to see him back again, because I love Ben Affleck, and I know we all enjoy Ben Affleck as an actor.
We love Ben Affleck,
and as Batman as well.
We've seen him in Batman vs Superman. He's great. It's just a shame, obviously, kind of what's been going on, that we have not gotten to get that Batman, anymore, right?
And it's not like in the Flash, everything is corrected and this character is like given that time that he needs. I don't think this is people are gonna remember this as a Ben Affleck Batman film.
Definitely not.
But again, there's a lot of fun stuff in this movie. It's so hard to kind of talk deeper about it without spoiling it, because there's a lot that, again, happens in this movie. There's a lot of cameos. There's a lot of world building. There's a lot of multiverse kind of stuff that just either can feel very convoluted. And if you're not familiar with all of DC's lore, and I'm talking about all of it, some moments that are supposed to hit hard, may not hit hard, and may just be like, well, what's that supposed to mean? Or what's that all about? And again, there's a great celebration of DC in this movie. There's a great celebration of all the wonderful DC characters that we've gotten. But all of it, and I think this is the word that all three of us have used about this film, and I think it's a term we're going to keep using about this movie. It all feels too late. And it's kind of ironic that a movie like The Flash, that's supposed to be fast and first, feels like it missed the mark, in the sense of it came out at a time where it's not doing anything, and we're already kind of moving past it.
And I think I want to jump off from that point, Shahbaz, because there's a lot in The Flash that works really, really well. There's a lot that I really loved in this movie, but there's a lot that I think just does not, either sit right with me or just kind of feels a little off. And the multiverse stuff, and it doesn't really even feel as much of a multiverse as it feels more like Back to the Future style of time travel, where you go to the past, you fix something, and then if you do that, you'll disappear in this timeline. Where I feel like over the last 3 or 4 years, we've kind of had it established that time travel, at least on the MCU side and across the Spider-Verse side, that it's kind of different dimensions they go to. So you're definitely going to have a lot of questions that are raised. I do think it's generous, and this is not an attack on you at all, Shahbaz, to say that there was some spotty CGI, because I felt the majority of the film did not look great. And it's like you see it in the trailers, and I think the final act in this movie, there's some genuine, just like uncanny valley that is nonstop, especially when we are in the Speed Force. And again, that is not the fault of the animators or the people who worked on the CG. It is a fact that I feel like the majority of this movie probably came together in the edit bay, or things that they were trying to figure out afterwards. But I've spoken a lot. I want to kick it to Anthony. Anthony, please jump in. Let us know what you thought of The Flash, your first reactions, your mindset kind of going into this movie.
You guys know I have a hate relationship with the Snyderverse, or the Snyder universe. So anything that kind of still lives in this world, I just automatically have a distaste for it. I can't I can't watch it anymore. I just want it over. And that's what this movie really is. It's like, what is the purpose? This movie took so long for it to come out, 10 years, almost 12, and it's a little too late at this point. Like, whatever you're showing me on the screen, even though there are really good moments to this story that we get from the Flash, it means nothing. It goes into the oblivion of the DC universe that was before. And it sucks because I know there was a lot of people who are part of this movie who hope that it makes money and it succeeds. And I just don't see how it fits into the James Gunn universe that we're going to get into. I don't see how whatever, even if it's a success and then it makes a lot of money, it ever going to a sequel, because Ezra Miller has, become this menace to society. It just has a lot of baggage with it, and I don't see it ever succeeding past what it is now. I think it'll just be one of those, The Flash came out, The Flash had its own movie one time, and it was interesting to say at least, but there was going to be a new Flash, and this is the story we're going to go with in the future. I think the best part of this film is Michael Keaton. Like, this is someone who hasn't been in a role since 92, right? 93. And he is Bruce Wayne through and through. Like, this dude can pick up the character who at this point is 30 years ago.
30 years, 30 plus 31, years, yeah, since
32?
32 years. He picks it up like it was yesterday. And there are really cool sequences with Bruce Wayne. There's a kitchen sequence. There's the sequence that you see in the trailer where he jumps down and he does the whole Batman, superhero pose, and he does the whole acrobatic thing. He is fantastic. I wish we got more of him. And I know there's a lot to the story. I wish we also got a lot more of Supergirl. I think she's there, we see her, she's a presence, but I don't think she was utilized as much as we thought she would be. And I feel like if people were going into this movie looking for closure, there is no closure. This movie doesn't close anything, and that's what kind of annoyed me, because James Gunn said, yeah, this is going to restart the universe. This is not a spoiler. This is a spoiler. This is not a spoiler. This movie does not restart anything. There's still a lot of story left that goes unanswered, and you're kind of like, what the hell does this mean? Yeah. Does this mean that, like, what does this mean?
Yeah, a lot of questions. A lot of questions.
That nails it. Yeah.
It comes back to, it means nothing. And that's how I look at it. It means nothing, because I can't see The Flash going to a sequel. There's just no way. If it is, then shame on Warner Brothers for allowing that to happen. I do like Ezra Miller as the Flash. There are really interesting and endearing sequences that Ezra Miller has done. There are things that I don't like. I don't like how the Flash is very neurotic. I don't like the poses that the Flash does. I don't like the CG that surrounds the Flash. I don't like a lot of things, but there are really good things that I know. We were in the car, right? We were talking about it. He's like, Anthony, tell me things that you like. And I said, things I don't like, because there is more of that.
No, you started it. You said, well, there are things I like about this film, like the things that I don't like. And we're like, oh, did we?
Yeah.
Are we in the Speed Force?
We're in the Speed Force right now, I think. That's exactly where we are.
And it kind of sucks because you really like Ezra Miller in this role, but you realize they're not the best person in the future for this character,
Yeah.
like you just,
and that's where you wonder, right? You wonder, like, okay, where is the future going to lie? Because again, no spoilers, but this film ends in a place where you're just like, okay, there's obviously breadcrumbs here that we could pick up on in a future film. We know Superman Legacy is going to be the start of the DCU. Are we just going to kind of leave these cards on the table? So there's a lot of questions there.
Yeah. There's a lot there. Yeah. There's a lot of fan service as well. And I know a lot of people who live in the Snyderverse are going to be like happy and clapping. But I feel like when you add fan service, you're you're not really evolving the story because you're just trying to appease a group of people who live in the past. And even Michael Keaton being, that's a fan service on its own. But Michael Keaton wanted to come back as Batman, and he wanted it because he wanted to come back for the third one, but it was not dark enough for him. So
Right.
that fan service, there's a little bit of a leeway in that sense. But everything else, like there's a lot of fan service where you're just like, come on, man.
And I think
And Ben
that the
Affleck being a
problem,
big one too.
yeah,
Like I did not like him as Batman in this movie.
he's used very interestingly in this film, and obviously once the world has gone to seen it, I'm curious to see what everyone's take is going to be. We've seen a lot of his scenes in the trailers, and I wish that at least he was going to be in the story more. But I do like right off the bat, I have to say I love Michael Keaton as Batman. I think he is so great in this film. He's having a blast. There's no notes on Michael Keaton. He just, without missing a beat, he is back as Batman, and he just kicks so much damn ass in this movie. But for me, it's a tale of a few different movies for me, where it feels like there's been a lot of hands in the pot, kind of making this film. I had a blast watching The Flash, but I also had a lot of just frustrations watching The Flash, and that's where I'm so torn. I feel like I'm being split in two because there's so much that I love as a DC fan. There's so much in this movie that it just gets right. And I think the story of Flashpoint, the story of a kid wanting to save his mom from dying and save his dad from going to prison, I think that was done so well. But I think it gets thrown into this giant pot of everything else, and it feels like it's trying to do so much. And fan service is one of those things. And a lot of people are going to go into this movie with the thoughts of Tom Cruise and James Gunn and Stephen King saying this is one of the greatest
The
superhero films
Pope.
of all time, and like it's not. It really isn't. There's a lot of fun to be had in The Flash, but it's not one of the best superhero films of all time. Like, we can't say that when Across the Spider-Verse just came out a couple weeks ago. Like, that's madness. And you can't you can't do that. But there is a lot of fun to be had, and I think when you think of some of the bright spots in this film, Ezra Miller is great as the Flash. It just really sucks that the person of Ezra Miller just isn't somebody that we can really get behind. And when you're having a film that literally has two Ezra Millers in it, that's a lot to get by, right? But I will say that the dynamic of the older Barry and the younger Barry, I think they play really well together. I like that the older Barry was kind of frustrated with younger Barry, just like, okay, you're a little obnoxious. You need to relax. And I think their dynamic played really, really well with one another. And then, of course, you're introducing Michael Keaton as Batman, who is just phenomenal. He steals every scene. And I agree with both of you guys that we have Sasha Calle as Supergirl, that I think is a great introduction, but we really don't get enough from her. She's just kind of there as a plot device, and then you don't get a lot. You don't really get any closure. And I wish that's kind of where I am, especially with the third act of this movie. It's a lot of questions, and I just feel like we don't get a lot of answers. I'm leaving the Flash with more questions than I had answers on kind of where the future of the DC universe is going. But I think there's some really inventive uses of speed, and I think just comedy, and I think it blends really well together. I think Andy Muschietti came into this film in a really interesting spots where so many directors have had their hands in this, so many writers have had their hands in this, and they just needed to get this movie out. There is another moment in this film that is a needle drop in a battle of this film that I think just did not work, and it reminded me of what Andy did in It Chapter 2 with that needle drop, where you're just like, okay, like this feels really out of place. This does not match the tone of the scene that's going on. It feels like you're having music for music's sake because you think it's going to look cool. And I think the other issue that I had with this film is its reliance on fan service, where it's not, Michael Keaton, like you said, Anthony, you're injecting him into the story for fan service, yes. And like we were talking about that, I think his presence in this movie makes sense in the sense that, like, yeah, we're going to bring him into it, and he's going to be part of the story at least, whether it's in this universe or his multiverse or whatever timeline they're doing it. You can't think about this movie too much because you're going to be pulling on those threads all day. But this movie does something else that bothers me, where it relies on fan service just by showing you something that you may recognize. And I think that's the lowest type of form of fan service to an audience, where you're just showing them something that they like instead of having a reason to show them. I think of Tobey Maguire stepping out of the portal in No Way Home. I think of Andrew Garfield stepping out of the portal in No Way Home, and seeing what that interaction looked like with those characters. You felt that. And that was a moment that everyone will forever remember watching No Way Home back in 2021, where I feel like a lot of those surprises in The Flash are things that don't really matter to the actual story that's going on. And of course, people who watch this film on the release will get what we're talking about. I know we're talking very vague right now, but it almost tries to be like, hey, look at this, like, look at me, like, recognize
It's manufactured,
this.
right? It's
Yeah,
very
it just
manufactured emotions.
you could pull it completely out of the story and it will not make
It does
any
nothing.
difference to what you actually saw. But just to kind of wrap up like my final thoughts, I had a good time with this movie. I know we're being a little bit critical of the things that didn't work, but there's a lot that worked. There's a lot that didn't. At the end of the day, I'm just still kind of leaving the movie as I went in with a lot of questions, and I don't think we'll be getting those answers.
Yeah, I think, I hate being reductive about films or just kind of saying a very blanket statement, but as a couple of hours have gone by, I'm just kind of like, it's fine. Like, it's a fine movie in the sense that, like, you'll have a good time, you'll have fun, but it doesn't leave a lasting impression. I think those moments that we've been talking about, that happen, it's cool to see, but again, has absolutely no weight in this film. And like you said, Daniel, you take those scenes out and the movie changes not one bit. In fact, it just feels like it's there so that people that maybe don't have to be so critical about films are going to be like, this is one of the greatest movies of all time because of that fan service moment that I got. And it's like, sure, that to you might be now all of a sudden the greatest comic book movie of all time, but it does not actually make it that. I think Andy Muschietti, hats off to him, because he was handed like an actual like bowl of garbage, just like, hey,
Oh my god.
and I mean that not sorry in the sense of like the writing or anything. I mean that because of all the crap
The
this
situation
movie's gone
right?
through.
The situation
Right?
it's gone through.
For years, it's gone through so many writers, directors. There's been, and half of these writers and directors we've had on our show at this point as well.
Yeah, seriously.
So it's insane. There's been so many people involved that the movie truly feels like it came together in editing, and it feels like Andy, who is a very capable and talented director, took what he got and made it into something that at least was still enjoyable. At no point while watching this film was I like, oh, screw this, or like, oh, this moment is done. It's more like, okay, cool, movie's done, and I'm like, yeah, that's fine. It didn't change the DCEU for me. I feel like right now the whole marketing team and everybody that's saying it's the greatest movie, and it's Ezra's going to stay on for the second movie, that's all just being said because at least let the movie come out so that they don't tank it.
You got to
And
sell
then
your movie.
You got to sell your movie.
Yeah.
You got to sell your movie no matter how you do it. So hats off to Andy for at least giving us something that's really enjoyable, in the sense that when you sit in that theater, you'll have a good time, you'll laugh, you'll be surprised by the characters, you'll be surprised by cool moments, but the film at the end of it just doesn't stick with you. You leave that theater and the Flash stays behind.
You won't be surprised by the villain. Like that's the biggest issue I had with this film, is like the villain was someone we already had multiple times, but he's not predominantly there too.
Like, is
like,
he
this
the
movie
villain
doesn't
though?
really have a villain.
It doesn't.
And he should.
It really, it's interesting. Like this film really doesn't have like a villain. The plot of the film is what's driving it forward. And I know you're probably thinking, yeah, no, duh, idiot. A plot is what drives the movie forward. No,
Yeah,
it literally
idiot.
is.
The fucking
sorry.
Flash has the rogue gallery. He has every single his biggest villain is a reverse version of him, and he's not in this movie. And that's not a spoiler. That's stating facts. Like, if you don't have the reverse Flash in the Flash film about his mother being dead, that doesn't make sense, because that's the guy who killed the mother. Like, you understand? Like, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
So
That is really
that is
Italian
the story
there, by
of
the way.
Flash, yeah. Hey,
but that's
what
the
about
that's
it?
but that's
it's
the
funny,
but we
right?
were,
It's funny, and like here we are now. Like, the Flash television show just wrapped up 9 seasons of its show, and again, to give some perspective here, Ezra Miller was cast a week after the first episode of The Flash premiered on the CW.
And they
now
were
we
on the
have-
show as a cameo, right?
Exactly. Ezra Miller was on The Flash as a cameo. I'm just really surprised that they didn't even try and maybe they tried. I don't know. But like, it's just strange to me that they wouldn't try and return the favor and have Grant Gustin on. But yeah, Ezra Miller was on The Flash television show. And it's interesting that, we've had these universes connected before. And there's a lot of moments in this film where it wants to kind of celebrate the DC universe as a whole. That's going to work for you. That's not going to work for you. Your mileage is going to vary on how they handled that. That's where I'm really curious and call to action for all of you watching this or listening to this. Please join our Discord because we want to talk about this movie with people, especially this type of film. We want to know what you thought of it, what moments work for you, what moments don't. So please join our Discord, leave comments below because we want to know. Like, we want to know how this is feeling for you, because this is kind of a loaded movie. I think we left the theater, Shay, and you were even saying like, I feel like a weight's been lifted off of me.
A weight
Because
has been lifted off.
We've been waiting so long for this movie, right?
And then also we said that if you think about this movie for longer than you should, you'll pick apart the movie so much that at a certain point you'll forget you had a fun time with it. And at the end of the day, you go to the movies to escape, you go to the movies to have a great time, and luckily this movie allowed us to do that. On the bigger scale of all things, it doesn't hit at all. If you're looking forward to that Flash, like that renaissance of the Flash, that's not happening here. The DCEU is not changing. The hierarchy has still not changed, and nothing is gonna be different after
the
this film.
hierarchy literally changed with James Gunn coming in.
That's it. You're right.
And
that's
that's
it.
kind of like our light,
Our
in the
North
distance
Star right now.
that we're following through. Let's get to
Yeah.
our final recommendations. Anthony, I would love for you to start us off.
Yeah, this is for me. I'm going to say it's an added to your queue.
Okay. Sorry, I thought you had more.
I don't have
coming
nothing else to
with
say.
the-
I said it,
that's added
man.
to your
I
queue.
said
That's fun.
it's
Listen.
added to your queue. I think you'll enjoy it at home.
Yeah.
And I think that's what it deserves at the end of the day.
I got you. I am actually right there with you. I would say add this to your queue. There's a lot of great times that I had with this movie, but I don't think there was enough that I was like, you need to rush out. You have to go run, like, jump into the Speed Force and go watch it. If you are someone who loves the Flash and you've loved the DCEU up to this point, then you're going to be there. You're going to go watch it. Doesn't matter what we say. But I think for myself, who I'm a huge lover of the Flash, even for me, I was like, you know what? There's a lot of good in here, but there was nothing in it that really made me go, this is what I need to go and spend my money on and go to a theater to watch. But again, your mileage is going to vary with that. Shahbaz, take us home.
And I think I just want to preface, like, I know, Anthony, you mentioned in the beginning that you have a hate relationship with the Snyderverse, but I think that only started to come, and correct me if I'm wrong, after all the shenanigans occurred. Because initially we've been enjoying Man of Steel. We have some issues with Batman vs Superman, but we still like it. And I think we said it on previous episodes before, we liked that world. It's been tainted, like really, like it's been ruined
because it was stop and go. Is it happening? Is it not? Zach's not here anymore, but
so
we're
much.
continuing it. There's so much baggage.
There's
so
so
baggage.
much. So we were not going into the Flash as like haters of what already exists.
No, not at all.
It's just kind of like
we're cheering for these movies to succeed.
and
always.
all we want is just the ribbon to nicely seal this film, and we don't get that. And because of that reason, sorry, go ahead.
No, Shahbaz, really quickly, before you get to your final recommendation, if you don't mind, I do just want to say, because we spoke about Man of Steel, we didn't talk about Michael Shannon or General Zod or anything like that. And I know
I think we kind of like touched on it, but
I just want to say it blows me away that a film from 10 years ago, Man of Steel, looked so incredible, but everything in the third act with Zod really makes it seem like they're not even like connected together. Like it's trying really hard to replicate that Zack Snyder aesthetic, but I don't think
it felt empty.
It felt empty. Like you're just in a big desolate world and like we're just open area. Like there was nothing that really felt tangible in the last act, and I think Zod especially felt like that. But please, sorry, Shahbaz, jump on.
No. I'm glad you said it, because you're right. Like it's there again. This movie, it's a good time. But the longer you think about it, the more the fun kind of dissipates. And because of that reason, I think just add it to your queue. You can watch this on Max probably when it comes out, or on Crave in Canada, and that's just really about it. There's good moments, but there's nothing here that makes you say this is the best comic book movie of all time.
Yeah, and it's wild where we have a film with Michael Keaton returning as Batman that even that sometimes doesn't feel like it's enough to get us excited, because again, the more you think of it, the more threads you start to pull. It starts to really unravel. But again, please, Anthony.
I just want to say I want to. I don't want a Michael Keaton Batman, but I want Batman Beyond, and I want Michael Keaton to play the older Batman.
I'd love that.
Yeah. I think he's just when we see him on screen, and he's just
charisma.
Gets into character.
He has the riz, man. Yeah.
But I think it says a lot about Michael Keaton, and I think he's had its renaissance many times in the past 10 years. But man, he's such a great actor.
He is, and I feel like it kind of bums me out sometimes that a lot of his lines in this film were trying so hard just to be like, want to get nuts? Let's get nuts.
Catchphrase.
I was hoping him saying that in the film was going to be off a line that made a lot more sense, but it literally was just like him saying it as a response. If one of you guys said, "Hey man, how you doing, Anthony?" and you said, "Nuts? You want to get nuts?" I'm like,
it's literally like Daniel. It's like me saying, "Hey man, you want to go watch a movie? Oh, you want to get nuts? No, I just want to go watch a movie."
Like it's just it felt like at least again comparing No Way Home, when Norman says, I'm something of a scientist myself, or like the power of the sun in the palm of my hand, like at least it made a little bit more narrative sense of what was going on.
We're picking it apart, guys. We're picking it apart.
We're spending too long on it. We're spending too long. It's time. We got to run away. We got to run away. Thank you so much for listening to our spoiler-free review of The Flash. Of course, this film runs into theaters on June 16th, and I want to say thank you to our friends at Warner Brothers Canada for inviting us to watch it. Of course, if you like what we're doing here at the Movie Podcast, please like and subscribe, leave us 5 stars, join our Discord, subscribe to us on YouTube, and follow us on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and Letterboxd. Everything you need to know is in the show notes below. That was This Time with the Movie Podcast, and we'll see you next.